Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we have to talk about a town. We have to talk about Chamberlain. And I don't mean the version you might know from movies or, the urban legends that have sprung up. I'm talking about Chamberlain, Maine, as it exists in the official record.
The primary sources.
Exactly. We're looking at a specific date, a date that, if you really dig into the sociology of American tragedies, it really stands as a kind of dividing line.
Yeah.
We're talking about May 27th, 1979.
The night of the Black Prom.
The night of the Black Prom.
It is, and I don't think this is an exaggeration, it's the case study to end all case studies.
How so?
Well, if you look at it through the lens of, say, disaster analysis, it's perfect. It has every component. It's a systemic failure of the local school board. It's a catastrophic, almost unbelievable breakdown in parenting.
Unbelievable is the word.
And then, sitting right there in the middle of it all, you have this biological anomaly that just completely upends our entire understanding of physics.
That's what really drew me into this whole stack of papers you sent over. I mean, usually when we look at historical tragedies, you can point to a single cause, right? A gas leak, a shooter, a bomb. But here, we are looking at something that just completely defies categorization.
It's a mess of inputs.
It is. We have the big one, the definitive academic text, The Shadow Exploded by David R. Congress. And he tries to treat this with, hard science.
He really does. He's very rigorous about it.
And then on the other end of the spectrum, we have the memoir, My Name is Susan Snell, which is, well, it's complicated.
Complicated is a very polite way of putting it. It's a very curated version of events, to say the least. It's a justification in a lot of ways.
It really is. And then mixed in with all that, you have the raw materials, the police reports, the journalism from the Westover Enterprise, and these bizarre, almost clinical entries from Ogilvy's Dictionary of Psychic Phenomena.
It's a jumble. It's a mess of contradictions.
But that's our job, isn't it?
That's the job. We have to try and reconstruct the timeline from all these conflicting pieces. We have to figure out how a bullying incident in a girls' locker room, and let's be honest, something like that happens in basically every high school in America every day.
Right. It's tragically common.
How did that one common ugly little moment manage to spiral into an event that effectively wiped a town off the map?
It's the butterfly effect, but, if the butterfly had a nuclear weapon, we're talking about Carrie White.
Carrie
White.
Carrie White.
Yeah.
Who's both the victim and the monster, depending on which page of the record you're reading.
And the thing that strikes me, reading The Shadow Exploded in particular, is that Congress is so adamant that we are not talking about a ghost story here.
Not at all. He fights that tooth and nail.
He treats TK telekinesis as a biological reality. He treats it like a disease or a genetic trait that just hadn't been documented yet.
And that is the critical lens we have to use today. If you treat this as magic or as supernatural, you miss the core of the tragedy. This was, according to the evidence, a physiological event.
Physiological.
The sources, the good ones, they describe TK not as, spell casting, but as a wild talent.
A wild talent. I like that phrase.
It's a recessive gene, potentially. It seems to have rules. It burns calories, a lot of them. It requires a trigger. It's not just something you can turn on and off.
So our mission for this deep dive is to map those triggers. We need to go from point A, the inciting incident in the shower, all the way to point Z, the moment the buckets fell. We need to understand why this happened and, frankly, if it could happen again.
That's the scary part.
So let's open the file. Where does the clock start ticking on this thing?
The clock starts in the humidity, May 1979, the girls' locker room at Ewan High School. And to really, truly understand the explosion, you have to first understand the pressure cooker.
I was reading the witness statements from some of the survivors, the ones who weren't in the gym later that night. And the description of that locker room is just, it's so visceral.
It's a character in the story.
It really is. It's not just a room. It's a hierarchy. You have the steam, the noise, the smell of chlorine and sweat. And right in the middle of it all, you have this very clear social stratification.
It's a jungle. It's a microcosm of the whole school. You have Chris Hargensen sitting at the absolute top of the food chain.
The lawyer's daughter.
Exactly. Wealthy, entitled, completely untouchable. You have Sue Snell, who is sort of the popular, bright girl who floats in that same upper orbit. She's part of that ruling class.
Right.
And then at the absolute bottom, you have Carrie.
The descriptions of her from the other girls, even in the official reports, are just brutal.
They are.
She's 16, almost 17. But they describe her like she's a different species. A sacrificial goat. That's a quote from one of the sources.
I believe that's from Sue Snell's book, actually.
Is it? Wow. She's chunky, pimpled, bovine. They use these animalistic terms. She's the person the group has collectively decided is safe to abuse.
And crucially, she is completely isolated. That's so important for the psychological profile here. She doesn't have a single friend, not one ally in that room. So when the biological event happens, she is utterly alone.
The shower incident, let's walk through it.
Yeah.
Carrie is standing there, showering after gym class, and she experiences her first menstrual period.
At age 16 and a half.
Which is late. I mean, medically speaking, that's very late for menarche.
It is. And The Shadow Exploded makes a massive point of this. Congress theorizes that the delay in sexual maturation might have actually allowed the TK potential to build up pressure.
Like a dam holding back way too much water.
Exactly. The hormonal trigger was delayed, so the power behind it just grew and grew.
But the part that just stops me cold, and I had to go back and reread the police transcripts to actually believe this, is her reaction. She screams. She thinks she is bleeding to death.
It seems impossible to us now, right? And even in 1979, it was deeply shocking to the people who investigated this. But the sources are unanimous and clear. Carrie White had absolutely no knowledge of menstruation.
Zero.
None. Her frame of reference isn't puberty. She sees blood running down her legs, and in her mind, that means one thing: fatal hemorrhage.
That is a level of ignorance that it doesn't just suggest neglect, it screams it. It's a form of abuse in itself.
It is.
So she's terrified, she's naked, she's wet, she's slippery with blood, and she stumbles out to the other girls for help. She's not trying to make a scene. She is begging them to save her life.
And this is the first critical failure point. This is where the sociological disaster begins. If just one girl in that room had stepped forward and said, "It's okay, Carrie, it's just your period,"
right,
the black prom never happens.
The whole timeline changes.
The whole thing stops right there. But they don't do that.
No, they don't.
No. The mob mentality kicks in. And it is instantaneous. Chris Hargensen starts it, but Sue Snell, our supposed heroine from the memoir, she joins in just as fast.
Sue writes about this with all the self-flagellation in her book. She calls it the savage things that live deep in the subconscious. She says there was a click in her head, and in that moment, Carrie wasn't a person anymore. She was just a target.
And they start chanting.
Plug it up.
Plug it up, just relentlessly.
They start throwing things at her?
Yes. They start weaponizing the feminine hygiene products. They're throwing tampons and sanitary napkins at her. Just think about the sheer calculated humiliation of that.
It's unbelievable.
They are pelting her with the very things she needs while mocking her for needing them. It's a level of cruelty that is almost artistic in its viciousness.
It's a total bombardment. Carrie is backing away. She's howling. The reports say she actually drops to her knees on the tile floor. It's a scene of just total abasement.
And that's when the teacher, Miss Desjardins, bursts in.
The authority figure arrives.
And even the authority figure fails her at first. Desjardins' initial reaction isn't sympathy. It's not concern. It's disgust.
Right. She thinks Carrie is just being hysterical.
Exactly. She sees this screaming, bleeding girl, and she assumes Carrie's just making a scene trying to get attention.
The report says she slapped her.
She did. A smart slap is how it was described. Across the face. She wanted to snap her out of it. It's only when Carrie grabs her shorts and leaves a bloody handprint on the white fabric and screams, "I'm bleeding to death," that Desjardins finally realizes the truth.
The penny drops.
The penny drops. She realizes this 17-year-old girl is genuinely innocent. She's not acting. She is living through a horror movie inside her own head.
And that specific combination of emotions, the mortal terror, the abject public humiliation, and the biological onset of the menstrual cycle.
That's the cocktail. That is the combination that unlocks the safe.
This is where we see the first flicker, the first sign of the wild talent.
The light bulb.
The light bulb.
It's a tiny detail, but it's mentioned very clearly in Desjardins' statement to the police. Just as Carrie is reaching the peak of her hysteria, screaming, the light bulb directly over her head doesn't just burn out.
It explodes.
It explodes, shatters.
And we aren't talking about the glass breaking because, you know, a tampon hit it or something.
Yeah, no. The Shadow Exploded has a whole section analyzing this. The filament itself disintegrated. It suggests a massive, localized surge of electromagnetic energy.
So under that extreme stress, Carrie's brain basically acted like a small EMP.
That's the theory. Exactly. It's the first uncontrolled discharge of the ability. Desjardins, of course, she just notes it as bad luck. She thinks bad luck always follows that girl.
But it wasn't luck.
It wasn't luck, it was physics. A new kind of physics.
So they get Carrie cleaned up, they get her to the nurse. The bleeding is finally explained to her, but the psychological damage is already done. Now we move up the chain to the administration.
Principal Grail and Assistant Principal Morton.
Lovable Mort.
Lovable Mort, the classic good cop to Grail's bad cop.
And they try to handle this like it's just a normal disciplinary issue. They send Carrie home. But as she's leaving the principal's office, we get another flicker. A bigger one.
Morton is flustered by the whole situation. He's trying to be nice, but he's patronizing. He doesn't know what to do, and he calls her Cassie.
Cassie, after everything she's just been through, he can't even be bothered to get her name right.
And that's it. That's the trigger for this one. She snaps. She spins around and screams, "That's not my name." And on the desk, there's this heavy ashtray, a ceramic replica of Rodin's The Thinker.
Okay, so we've graduated from a light bulb filament. This is a heavy, solid object.
A very heavy object, and it flips. It doesn't just slide or vibrate. It flips off the desk violently.
Wow.
Morton later told the White Commission that it felt like an invisible hand had just swept the desk clear.
But he rationalized it right in the moment.
Of course. The human brain abhors the impossible. He told himself he must have bumped it with his hip. He immediately starts sweeping up the pieces. But looking back, with the dossier of evidence we have now, it's crystal clear.
The phenomenon was escalating.
Rapidly. It went from passive energy interference with a light bulb to active kinetic movement of a heavy object in the span of maybe an hour.
Yeah.
The power was waking up.
Okay, so we have the trigger. The biology is now online. The power is active. But we have to go back. We have to address the root cause of her vulnerability. Why didn't she know? Why was she this blank slate? We have to look at the home life. We have to talk about Margaret White.
If you want to understand the monster, you have to look at the maker. And Margaret White is. She is a true nightmare figure.
A widow. Works at Blue Ribbon Laundry. Deeply religious.
Deeply fundamentalist, but she's not following any standard scripture. This is important. She's created her own bespoke theology of sin and punishment.
The police catalog the contents of the White House on Carlin Street after the event. And reading that list, it feels like a horror movie set.
It does. The Black Bible, the crucifixes everywhere, the silence, the neighbors all talked about the silence of that house.
And at the core of her belief system was this concept she called the curse of blood.
The curse of blood.
What was that exactly?
In her mind, menstruation wasn't a natural biological function. It was a physical manifestation of sin.
Specifically what sin?
The sin of intercourse, or even just the thought of it. She truly believed that if a woman remained pure, truly spiritually pure in thought and deed, she would never get her period. The blood was God's punishment.
So when Carrie comes home from school that day, traumatized, confused, and bleeding,
Margaret doesn't see a victim. She sees a sinner. She sees proof that Carrie must have had impure thoughts or actions to bring this curse down upon herself.
the abuse described in the reports from that day is horrific. She beats her with a Bible. But it's the prayer closet that really it just haunts you when you read about it.
The cupboard under the stairs.
It's tiny, claustrophobic, maybe 3 feet by 5 feet. And the decor. A single bare blue light bulb. And that picture.
The jackal-headed Jesus. It's an old, distorted religious print of the crucifixion, but the way the shadows fall, to a child, it looks like a monster.
It's terrifying.
And Margaret would lock Carrie in there for hours, sometimes for days, telling her to get on her knees and pray for forgiveness for sins she didn't even understand.
And God made Eve from the rib of Adam, and she was weak. That was the mantra she had to repeat.
It's psychological torture. It's designed to make Carrie hate her own body, hate her own femininity, and that profound self-hatred is the fuel for the TK. But here's the twist, and this is where the academic sources like The Shadow Exploded really dig in. Margaret didn't just hate the sin, she feared the power.
She knew. She knew Carrie had this ability, didn't she?
She absolutely knew. The shower incident wasn't the first time Carrie moved things with her mind, not by a long shot. We have the sworn testimony of the next-door neighbor, Estelle Horan.
The Rain of Stones.
The Rain of Stones. This happened when Carrie was just a toddler, 3 years old.
3, wow.
Estelle was in her backyard, sunbathing in a bikini.
Which, in Margaret White's eyes, is basically a capital offense.
It's the act of a whore of Babylon. Margaret comes out, sees this, shrieks and drags a crying Carrie back inside. Carrie is upset. She's reaching out for the pretty lady. And then the sky falls.
Stones.
Smooth gray river stones falling out of a perfectly clear blue sky. But, and this is the detail that proves the directional intent of the phenomena.
They only hit the White House.
He only hit the White House. Estelle Horan's house, not 5 feet away, wasn't touched. Not a single pebble. Meanwhile, the stones are punching holes in the White's roof. They're smashing the windows. It was a targeted telekinetic tantrum, a 3-year-old's rage made manifest.
So Margaret knew for years that her daughter was different. She called her a witch in her journals.
And in a way, she wasn't entirely wrong if you look at the genetics of it. Congress dedicates a whole chapter to this theory of the TK gene.
This is the part that connects it all back to the father, isn't it?
Ralph White.
Ralph White, a construction worker, a very quiet man by all accounts, carried 2 things with him everywhere: a .38 revolver and a King James Bible. And he died in a construction accident before Carrie was even born.
A steel beam fell on him, which, given the family's telekinetic history, feels grimly appropriate.
It does.
The theory that Congress puts forward is that the TK gene is recessive and it's sex-linked, a bit like hemophilia.
So men can carry it without showing symptoms, but it can be expressed in their female offspring.
That's the idea. Ralph White was the asymptomatic carrier. Carrie was the full genetic expression. She inherited the gun, so to speak.
So she was a ticking time bomb from the moment of conception.
A typhoid Mary of psychokinesis. The gene was just dormant, waiting for the right hormonal cocktail to activate it. And Margaret, in her fanatical attempt to suppress it through prayer and abuse, actually pressurized it. She turned a leaky faucet into a fire hose. She made the explosion inevitable.
So the powder keg is built, packed, and primed. Now we need the final spark. Let's go back to the school. The fallout from the shower incident, it triggers a chain reaction.
It does. It basically splits the entire senior class into 2 opposing camps. You have what I'd call the conspiracy of the compassionate, which is led ostensibly by Sue Snell, and then you have the conspiracy of the vicious, led by Chris Hargensen.
Let's start with Chris, because her reaction to being punished for bullying it's not normal. It's sociopathic.
It is. Miss Desjardins demands detention for all the girls involved in the shower incident. Boot camp-style detention. Chris, being who she is, refuses. She's entitled. Her father is a high-powered lawyer. She thinks she's above the rules.
She screams at the teacher. There's a whole confrontation. She storms out, and she gets herself suspended.
And crucially, she is banned from the senior prom.
That's it. That's the catalyst for her entire war.
For a girl like Chris Hargensen, prom is everything. It's the coronation. Taking that away from her is like stripping her of her citizenship. And she doesn't blame herself for her actions. She blames Carrie. It's a complete displacement of responsibility. That freak cost me my prom.
So she immediately starts planning her revenge. But at the same time, on the other side of the school, Sue Snell is having a crisis of conscience.
Sue is the most complex and frankly the most difficult character to pin down in this whole tragedy. In her memoir, she paints herself as a martyr, a saint. She says she felt the crushing weight of her actions. She looked at Carrie, and for the first time, she saw the damage they had all done.
So she comes up with a great gesture.
The grand plan. She asks her boyfriend, the very popular Tommy Ross, to ask Carrie to the prom.
And Tommy is the golden boy. He's the class president, star athlete. But the sources say he wasn't, a dumb jock. He was smart. He was sensitive.
He was a genuinely good kid, by all accounts. And he agrees to do it because he loves Sue and he trusts her.
But I have to ask the question, and I know the sources debate this endlessly. Was Sue doing this for Carrie, or was she doing it for herself?
That is the eternal question of the Chamberlain tragedy. Was it altruism, or was it a specific kind of arrogance? There's a term for it. Lady Bountiful. The rich girl descending from on high to help the poor peasant, mainly to make herself feel virtuous.
Because by taking herself out of the equation, by giving up her own perfect prom night with her boyfriend, she left the goal wide open for Chris Hargensen's plan.
That's the tragic irony. If Sue is at the prom with Tommy, Chris's plot doesn't work. It can't. By stepping back to be noble, Sue unknowingly cleared the stage for the catastrophe.
Let's talk about that plot, the counterplot, as the commission called it. Because this wasn't just a simple prank. This was a military operation in its planning.
Chris recruits her boyfriend, Billy Nolan.
And Billy is a different breed of bad news. He's not a high school mean girl. He's a genuine delinquent, a criminal in training.
He's the muscle. Chris is the architect. She comes up with the weapon.
Pig blood.
Pig blood.
The reasoning being pig blood for a pig.
It's crude, but it's symbolically potent. And the acquisition of the blood. The police report on the break-in at Henty's farm is just nauseating to read.
They didn't just buy the blood from a butcher. They went and killed the pigs themselves.
Billy Nolan and his greaser friends, They used sledgehammers. It wasn't a slaughter, it was a massacre. It was brutal. They drained the blood into 2 galvanized buckets.
And that detail, the buckets, that matters, doesn't it? They weren't plastic.
Not at all. They were heavy, zinc-plated metal. Each one weighed several pounds, even when empty. You have to keep that in mind.
So Billy, using his network of delinquent friends, breaks into the U and High gym. He rigs the buckets up in the flies, the rafters and catwalks above the stage.
And he's meticulous about it. He finds out where the king and queen throne will be placed. He marks the floor with chalk. He rigs the ropes. He creates a perfect gravity-fed trap. It's a loaded gun pointed directly at center stage.
So the trap is set. The conspiracy is in motion. Now we move to the final build-up. The day of, May 27th, prom night.
And the atmosphere in Chamberlain that day, the reliable sources people interviewed years later, they all describe it as heavy, oppressive. Even the weather was hot and stifling, like the air itself was waiting for something to break.
And at the White House, Carrie is preparing. She's accepted Tommy's invitation, against her better judgment.
She's wary. She even told him, I don't like to be tricked. She expects the worst. But she wants to go. She wants, for one night, to be part of the human race.
She sews her own dress.
Crushed red velvet.
And the color itself is an act of rebellion.
It's a declaration of war against her mother. Margaret wanted her to wear black, or nothing at all. Red is the color of blood, the color of sin, in Margaret's twisted worldview.
The confrontation between them that evening, right before Tommy arrives, it's the final psychological break before the prom. Margaret tries to stop her from going.
She doesn't just try to stop her, she tries to destroy her spirit. She sees the dress and she goes completely berserk. She throws hot tea in Carrie's face. She starts to beat her with her Bible.
But this time is different. This time, Carrie doesn't cower. She doesn't run to the closet.
No. This is the moment where the TK becomes a weapon of self-defense. Carrie flexes. That's the word that sources use.
Describe what that means. Because the police reports, based on Margaret's later testimony, mentioned the temperature in the house dropped suddenly.
The refrigeration effect. It's a concept from The Shadow Exploded. When a telekinetic draws on ambient energy to move a physical object, they pull thermal energy from the immediate environment. The room gets cold.
So the room literally freezes over for a moment. And Carrie.
She shoves her mother across the room without laying a finger on her. She lifts the bed off the floor with her mother still sitting on it. She slams all the doors in the house shut at once. And she says, I'm not afraid anymore, Mama.
That shift is seismic. For 17 years, Margaret was the omnipotent, terrifying God of Carrie's world. In 5 seconds, Carrie realizes she is stronger than God.
But it comes at a physiological cost. Her heartbeat, according to her own account, slows way down. She's burning calories at a marathon runner's pace just to keep that bed in the air. This isn't magic. It's work. It's draining her.
She leaves her mother crying on the floor, walks out the door, and gets into Tommy Ross's car.
And they go to the prom?
And here is the part of the tragedy that just twists the knife. The night. It actually starts out perfect.
It does. It's the cruelest part of the whole timeline. Carrie walks into that gym. The theme is springtime in Venice. There's crepe paper, murals of gondolas. It's cheesy, but it's sweet.
And she isn't laughed at. The great fear she had doesn't materialize.
No, because she's beautiful. The sources are absolutely unanimous on this point. With her hair done in that red velvet dress she was striking, the other students are genuinely stunned into silence, and then they're nice to her. They compliment her.
Even Miss Desjardins.
Especially Miss Desjardins. She comes over to their table. She tells Carrie she looks beautiful. She apologizes for how she acted in the past. She validates her.
And for the first time in her entire life, Carrie feels what she later called the enchantment. She feels like she belongs.
She's dancing with Tommy. She's chatting with other kids. She's drinking punch. It's a normal, happy high school night.
But while she's experiencing this, the machinery of the plot is still turning in the background. Chris Hargensen has rigged the election for prom king and queen.
Her friends stuffed the ballot box. It wasn't even close.
They needed Carrie on that stage under the buckets, so they made sure she won.
The results are announced. Your prom king and queen, Tommy Ross and Carrie White.
And the irony is, they probably would have won anyway. The investigation showed they won the legitimate vote by one single vote.
So they go up to the stage. The applause starts. And looking at the witness testimony, the applause was genuine. The student body, the ones not in on the plot, they didn't know about the buckets. They were actually happy for the underdog. They were cheering for her.
Carrie is crying, but they're happy tears. Yeah. She's holding the roses. She's sitting on the throne. She looks at Tommy and she thinks, It's real. This is really happening. They like me.
And then the school song begins to play. All rise high for Thomas Ewan High.
That was the signal.
That was the signal.
So now we come to it, Section 5, the catastrophe.
Chris and Billy are outside, peering through a vent under the bleachers. Chris has the end of the rope in her hand.
Does she hesitate at all? Does any source suggest a moment of doubt?
Not for a second. She smiles, and she yanks the cord.
Gravity takes over.
The buckets tip. 2 full gallons of congealed, foul-smelling pig blood fall from the rafters.
The impact.
It hits Carrie and Tommy perfectly. Carrie is instantly drenched. The beautiful red velvet dress, her hair, the flowers, everything is coated in this thick red slime. She looks like a slaughterhouse victim.
And the bucket. The heavy metal bucket.
One of the empty metal buckets, now free, swings down on its handle like a pendulum.
Oh, no.
And it hits Tommy Ross squarely on the side of the head.
The gong sound that was described in so many of the reports.
It's a sickening sound. It cracks his skull. He drops like a stone. He's unconscious, likely dying or already dead, right there at her feet.
So the music stops. There's this moment of stunned silence. Carrie is standing there, dripping blood. And then the sound that ends the world.
The laughter.
Where does it start?
Yeah.
Do we know?
It's unclear. Maybe a nervous titter from someone who thought it was a prank. Maybe just a gasp of shock. But it spreads. It's a contagion. The sheer grotesque absurdity of the image. The prom queen covered in blood. It breaks the tension. And the entire gym erupts in laughter.
And this is the moment. This is the psychological snap.
We have to try and get inside Carrie's head here based on the forensic psychology reports. She doesn't hear a confused crowd. She doesn't hear nervous laughter. Her mind, her perception, it snaps instantly back to the shower room.
She sees the same faces. She hears the same chant. Plug it up.
She hallucinates. Every single laughing face in that crowd morphs into a single mocking demon. She thinks they all planned this. She thinks the compliments were a lie. The applause was a trick. She thinks everyone is in on it, even Tommy.
So she tries to run.
She starts to run for the doors. But then she stops. Something changes. The flex returns. But it's different now. It's not defensive. It's offensive.
The doors.
Witnesses near the exits describe all the gym doors slamming shut simultaneously.
Not by a draft or the wind.
By an immense unseen force. And then they heard the crunch of metal. The reports conclude she telekinetically fused the panic bars. She locked them all in.
She trapped them.
And then the fire hose reels on the wall start to spin on their own. The overhead sprinkler systems turn on, dousing everyone and everything. And then the electrical cables in the ceiling start to spark and ride like snakes.
My God, she is weaponizing the building itself.
She is orchestrating a mass electrocution. She turns and walks out of the one door she left for herself, leaving 400 people locked inside with the water rising and high-voltage electricity arcing through the air.
The Black Prom.
It wasn't just a fire, which is how it was first reported. It was a calculated execution.
We're going to pause the timeline right there because the destruction of the town that followed, the gas stations exploding, the church burning down, that's a whole other level of devastation we could spend hours on. But just focusing on this one arc, from the shower to the bucket.
It's a perfect storm. It really is. Every single safety valve that society has in place failed. The mother failed to nurture, the school system failed to protect, her peers failed to show basic empathy, and the biology failed to remain dormant.
It really makes you question that monster label. Was Carrie the monster? Or was she just the bomb that the entire town of Chamberlain built piece by piece over 17 years?
The Shadow Exploded argues, very convincingly, that she was a victim of circumstance right up until the moment the doors locked. The White Commission report, on the other hand, they labeled her a menace, a genetic deviation that needed to be understood and, if possible, neutralized.
And that leads me to the final, really unsettling thought that comes out of all this, the genetic component.
Right, the recessive TK gene.
Her father, Ralph White, he carried it. And by all accounts, he looked normal. He acted normal. He worked a normal job.
Which means others could be carrying it right now, and they would have no idea.
Exactly. If this is a recessive gene scattered throughout the human population, like, say, the gene for red hair, is Carrie White a singular anomaly? A 1 in a billion freak event? Or is she a prototype?
That's the question that keeps the parapsychologists and the geneticists up at night. Is this the next step in human evolution? A defense mechanism for the outcast, manifesting as a weapon?
Are there other Carries out there right now, sitting in classrooms, being pushed around, just waiting for their own personal version of the Black Prom?
It's a terrifying possibility. It suggests we might be living in a world full of unexploded ordnance, just waiting for the right trigger to be pulled.
On that cheery note,
Yeah.
thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the Chamberlain tragedy.
It's a heavy one, but a necessary one to understand.
We'll see you on the next deep dive. And stay safe out there.